Donald Trump's $10 billion lawsuit that he filed against his own government, against his own IRS. It just blew up in his face, and interviews that he gave were some of the evidence that backfired in his face. So what went down moments ago, a federal judge in the Southern District of Florida just issued an order asking whether there's truly a case in controversy between Donald Trump and his own federal government. For there to be jurisdiction, there must actively be a conflict between two parties. You can't just have like two friends show up in court and have a collusive deal and then ask a federal judge to give a stamp of approval for a deal that friends are working out. There has to be a real case in controversy, a real conflict. So this federal judge in the Southern District of Florida said, your $10 billion lawsuit, Donald, it looks very collusive. It looks like you trying to use this federal court to bless or give a stamp of approval to pay you $10 billion from the IRS or from the Treasury Department. The IRS is within the Treasury Department. And I'm not going to go and do that. So instead of just allowing this charade to go on, the federal judge says, I am issuing an order to show cause to make either you show up in court, Donald, or Treasury Secretary Scott Besson show up in court, or somebody from your regime to explain why this is a real case and not some fraud on the court. I'm going to read for you in just a moment what this federal judge ruled, not letting Donald Trump just get away with settling this case with himself. And now, one of the things that I think this court may do, and you may recall that I did this on a hot take video with some of the lawyers that we had, Harry Littman and others on this network, is the court may just say, you know what, I'm going to stay or pause this entire case until Donald Trump's term is over, in which case there could be adversity between the parties and not this collusive deal. The court's very concerned about using the court to basically bless this fraud that seems to be taking place. So let me just show you what this court's order said. Let's go right into it. Again, it's the United States District Court for the Southern District of Florida. The federal judge is Judge Kathleen Williams, and here's the order. This matter is before the court on plaintiffs' consent motion for a 90-day extension. In the motion, plaintiffs ask the court to grant an extension for a period of 90 days in all proceedings in this matter. The only scheduled event at issue is defendant's response to the complaint. For the reasons stated below, the court will sua sponte, meaning on the court's own initiative, stay defendant's obligation to respond and set a briefing schedule to address the questions of the court's subject matter jurisdiction. In order for the court to have jurisdiction, there has to be an actual case and controversy, a real conflict and not collusion. And so what the court is saying there is, at this point, the plaintiff, Donald Trump and the Trump Organization, they've asked for an extension of time while they engage in negotiations or settlement discussions with the defendant, the United States government, the Treasury Department, and the IRS. You're asking the court to grant you this extension essentially for these settlement discussions to take place for 90 days. And the defendant at this point, the Treasury Department and the IRS, they're supposed to respond to your complaint. If there's a controversy in case, they should file a motion to dismiss, or they should answer the complaint because it's a completely frivolous lawsuit. And so I'm not just going to grant you an extension of time until I find out what's really going on here. The court goes on to say how on January 29, 2026, plaintiff, President Donald J. Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, and the Trump Organization filed a complaint against defendants, the IRS, and the United States Treasury Department. In the complaint, plaintiffs, Trump, his kids, and the Trump Organization, assert violations of 26 U.S.C. 6103 and 26 U.S.C. 7431 and violations of 5 U.S.C. Section 552E. These are data breach causes of action, right? What Trump is alleging that in 2019 and in 2020, the IRS hired this contractor, this guy named Little John. Little John took the job and leaked tax returns of Donald Trump, as well as 7,600 or so other wealthy individuals. And then it became this big expose in ProPublica and other places about how rich people dodge their taxes. And it was a big IRS data breach, not just involving Trump's taxes, but involving all of these other wealthy people's taxes. And then there was a story, an expose, how they basically dodge taxes and don't pay their taxes and don't pay taxes at all. Before defendants could respond to the complaint, plaintiffs filed the instant motion requesting a global extension of time. And then the court goes into what the law is. Federal courts are courts of limited jurisdiction. We possess only that power authorized by the Constitution and by statute. Thus, this court has an independent obligation to police the constitutional and statutory limits of its jurisdiction. One such constitutional mandate is set forth in Article 3. Article 3 of the Constitution. That's the article that deals with the judicial branch, which limits federal courts to adjudicating cases or controversies. The existence of a case or controversy is a bedrock requirement of our jurisdiction. We cannot exercise judicial power without it. Accordingly, before the court can rule on plaintiff's motion, it must confirm that it has jurisdiction. A key characteristic of the case and controversy requirement is the existence of adverseness, or a dispute between parties who face each other in an adversary proceeding. There must be an honest and actual antagonistic assertion of rights by one individual against another, which is neither feigned nor collusive. Typically, adverseness is found in a situation where one party is asserting a right and the other party is resisting. Consequently, if there is no adverseness, there is no case or controversy, and then there is no jurisdiction. In the instant case, defendants, the Treasury Department and the IRS, have not yet filed any notice of appearance. They haven't even appeared in the case yet. And in a normal situation where there is adverseness, they would appear and they would file motions to dismiss. Nonetheless, the parties have advised the court that they are engaging in discussions to resolve this matter, to reach a settlement. Moreover, although President Trump avers that he is bringing this lawsuit in his personal capacity, he is a sitting president, and his named adversaries are entities whose decisions are subject to his direction. Indeed, Trump's own remarks about this matter acknowledge the unique dynamic of this litigation. Accordingly, it is unclear to this court whether the parties are sufficiently adverse to each other so as to satisfy Article 3's case or controversy requirement. So here the court uses Donald Trump's own words against him, even though Donald Trump and the Treasury Department and IRS didn't file anything about this. The court says this is public record. You have issued executive orders that say the Treasury Department and IRS can't act independently. They need your approval for everything, which is unprecedented for agencies and departments which are supposed to have a modicum of independence. You've stopped that. So they report to you based on your own executive orders. And then number two, Donald, there are multiple interviews of you, one on Air Force One, another one that you gave on NBC, where you say you've won the case already, that it's settled. You've used the words, Donald, you're settling with yourself and you've already won. So you've admitted by saying those things that there is no case in controversy, there is no adverseness, thus there is no subject matter jurisdiction of the court because we're not going to be a rubber stamp for your fraudulent collusive settlement agreement. That's not what courts do. So I think that was a very big finding by the court. And the court says, show up in court, Donald, and give us the information about why there's actual adversity. I'm not just going to go along with this charade. Conclusion. The court hoped to evaluate this issue after defendants responded to the complaint. So the federal judge says, we were hoping to see if there was going to be adverseness, if a motion to dismiss was filed, or if an answer was filed, some response to the underlying complaint. However, in light of plaintiff's motion to extend the deadlines to permit settlement discussions, The court says, I'm not okay with that. I will ask the parties to address the question of subject matter jurisdiction before addressing the relief requested in the motion. So before I get to extensions and settlement discussions, I want to know that there's actual adverseness and this whole thing isn't one big fraud. Accordingly, it is ordered and adjudged that by May 20th, 2026, the parties shall each file a memorandum of law that addresses the issue of whether the case and controversy exists in this matter to establish the court's jurisdiction. And then the court said at a hearing, May 27, 2026, the parties should come prepared to discuss the issues identified above. Judge Kathleen Williams signed in Chambers, Miami, Florida on the 24th day of April. Now, you'll recall the interviews that she's discussing, right? And the statements by Donald Trump that she's discussing. Here was the interview that Donald Trump gave with NBC on February 4th, 2026, a few days after he filed the lawsuit. And he told the NBC reporter, essentially, the lawsuit has already been won. Hence, an admission that there is no adverseness. Here, play this clip.
Essentially, the lawsuit's been won. I guess I won a lot of money.
How would this work, though? Scott Bessent's the head of the IRS.
What I would
Pam Bondi's the head of the Justice Department. They're going to defend the IRS against you. You're their boss.
Well, there's never been anything like it, in all fairness.
So are you going to tell them to pay you?
Don't forget, I sued as a private citizen because I sued between terms. I won
but are you going to tell them to pay you?
I won 3 times, but I didn't assume, unfortunately for this country, I didn't assume office the second time. But here's the story. I sued because they broke into Mar-a-Lago. That was before I became president. Now it goes along, and it turned out that the suit is a very strong suit.
You're going to tell them to pay you, though? You're the boss.
Well, what I would do, tell them to pay me, but I'll give 100% of the money to charity. I don't want any of the money.
You take it out of the system. A couple more questions here.
No, I'm putting it back into the system.
Yeah.
If I give money to American Cancer Society, I will give 100% of the money away to charity. I don't want any of it.
$30 trillion debt, and we're going to take $10 billion out of the system?
Well, I mean, you give it away anyway. They give away a lot of money.
Your endorsement.
I'll tell you what, speaking about that, Minnesota and these other states, we have massive investigations going into fraud.
Yeah.
Do you know if we captured 50% of the fraud of this country right now, we would have better than a balanced budget. And you got to mention that Minnesota, $19 billion in fraud.
Then there was what Donald Trump said on Air Force One, when Donald Trump said, you're seeing the IRS. Well, the reporter asks him, so you're suing the IRS? What do you mean? Aren't you on both sides of the lawsuit? Right? Literally, the reporter says, isn't that weird that you're both the plaintiff and the defendant? And Trump goes, it's very interesting. I virtually won the Mar-a-Lago break-in lawsuit. And, I have to work out some kind of settlement. I'm supposed to do a settlement with myself. By doing a settlement with yourself, no adverseness, no case and controversy, bye-bye your $10 billion sham lawsuit. Play this clip so you can hear Donald Trump for yourself. Let's play it.
You're suing the IRS. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be on both sides of a lawsuit.
It's very interesting. I have another one where I've virtually won the Mar-a-Lago break-in suit, and I have to work out some kind of a settlement. I'm supposed to work out a settlement with myself because when the FBI broke in, we sued. Before I was president, I sued, and obviously it was a very good suit. And I have that one, and I have to work out a settlement.
Have you instructed Pam Bondi on how to handle that at all?
Well, I think what we'll do is do something for charity. We're thinking about doing something for charity where I'll give money to charity. We can make it a substantial amount. Nobody would care because it's going to go to numerous, very good charities.
And then remember when reporters were asking him more about this, like a reporter in the Oval Office said, why are you suing your own IRS? And Trump's like, you're a loud person. You're obnoxious. Play this clip.
Mr. President, why are you suing this administration and the IRS? Why are you suing?
Who are you with?
I'm with ABC News.
You're a loud person. Very loud. Let somebody else have a chance.
Can you answer the question?
Right.
Why are you suing IRS?
ABC fake news.
You're suing.
Go ahead. I didn't call on you.
And then there were hearings about this. Remember, in the United States Senate, where Senator Kim, Democratic senator from New Jersey, cross-examined Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on this issue. Hear it for yourself. Play this clip.
When we see that Trump is now suing the Treasury and the IRS for $10 billion, he even said, I am supposed to work out a settlement with myself. That's what Trump said. Do you think that that is a conflict of interest?
That is a Justice Department issue.
No, it is suing your department.
The Justice Department represents Treasury. I would suggest you contact Justice.
Now, it should also be noted that there was a group of top tax professionals and people with experience in these types of matters who filed an amicus brief before this federal judge and brought up this very issue. It was, here it is right here. Motion for leave to file brief as amici curiae, amici. And it says 4 former government officials, along with the nonpartisan organization Common Cause and Project on Government Oversight, submit this motion for leave to brief this issue. You had John Koskinen, served as the 48th Commissioner of the IRS, Catherine Kinnelly, the Assistant Attorney General for the DOJ Tax Division, Nina Olson, served as the National Taxpayer Advocate from 2001 to 2019, Gilbert Rothenberg, Chief of the U.S. Department of Justice Tax Division, and Common Cause. I mean, top tax people within the government. And here's what they suggested that the court do, and it seems like the court's taking that advice. The court should consider issuing, because this was filed back on February 5th of 2026. The court should consider issuing an order for the parties to show cause why this court has jurisdiction over this case, to explain how they will address the fundamental conflict of interest problems with this case, to show why this case should not be stayed, paused, until after Donald Trump leaves office, and to show why the unjustified $10 billion damage figure should not be stricken from the pleadings. Second, the court should consider appointing an amici, almost like a counsel and a guide, who have expertise on the issue of tax law and separation of powers issues to present fulsome legal arguments on all future issues that arise out of the court. So at least the first step, it seems like the court is taking. And just to, again, remind you of what this lawsuit is about, it's a guy by the name of Littlejohn, Charles E. Littlejohn, Chaz Littlejohn, a former IRS contractor. He accessed and leaked Trump's tax returns and 7,600 other high net worth individuals. The thing is that in the past, though, former presidents released their tax returns. That was a standard thing that presidents did. And so the fact that Donald Trump claims that he was injured to the tune of $10 billion, that the public got to see his tax returns, is ridiculous. I mean, he should be turning it over in general. So anyway, that's the analysis. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 7 million subscribers. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.